Mirror, mirror on the wall, what happens when you don't comply with left-wing activism law? When you seek and search for a great game to create, but forget the political agenda you need to infiltrate. A black meat Wukong you may desire to estate, but IGN prepared will be your mind to try and penetrate. So join me on a journey, a trip down memory lane that will strap you to a gurney and declare you quite insane. A journey that for IGN begins on November 20th, 2023 with an article by the name How Black Myth Wukong Developers' History of Sexism is Complicating Its Journey to the West. In it, IGN reveals different social media posts from the staff working at Game Science who are responsible for the game's development. A quote from one of the game's company founders saying, and I quote, "I want to expand my circle and hire more people, get licked until I can't get an erection," as well as another quote from a technical artist saying, "The snake spirit is different from what I imagined, but if I cover the bottom half with my hand, it's still possible to jerk off," before going on a random rant about feminist organizations in China and another developer by the name of Gunfire Rebort, stating he didn't want another feminist bitch in the company, as well as the inclusion of multiple nameless and faceless women's comments on the situation. So gross. As a female player, I actually wanted to buy the game originally. Forget it. Okay, he definitely doesn't need money from a female player like myself. However, despite that article seeming to reveal Game Science staff as a bunch of horny sexists, IGN had made a fatal mistake. All the quotes they featured in the article were translated from Chinese, and done so wrongly on purpose to paint the developer in the worst possible picture. It's on Reddit that native Chinese speakers would call them out on it. Well, I think this report is a joke. Loads of mistranslations on purpose. Like, how could they mistranslate "you will be used to it" to "you can jerk off with it"? It is clearly an intentional mistranslation to fit the sexism narrative.
Anyone reading this would instantly think the founder is a pervert, but an actual good faith interpretation would be, "I wanted to expand my circle and hire more people, but people were brown nosing me so much that I wasn't even able to function anymore."
Americans have quite a few of them as well, like for example, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," and many others. IGN had clearly went out of their way to paint a false narrative, which is no surprise when you dig into the person responsible for the translation. On Twitter, quoted as saying, "I'm so fucking pissed off. This has gone too far. Don't play Black Myth Wukong if you must go and pirate it. If you enjoy it, I don't want to know it. Fuck Game Science and all the grifters who are doing this to one of my fave people in the industry," before going on another rant. "Do I hate white people? Yes. And if you're a friend, you understand why this is never personal. I hate white privilege so much. Their ability to scream reverse racism when faced with a tiny bit of criticism. The world revolves around them, even in Singapore every day." No wonder IGN hired this person. Talk about cut from the same cloth. Anyways, despite being caught in a lie, did IGN try to apologize for their embarrassing attempt at hurting the studio's reputation? Of course not. It's IGN, and you can't spell ignorant without it. The other person responsible for the article would have this to say.
"Everyone has really just gone on to prove over and over that Black Myth Wukong's online community is infested with sexism, and its developers at best don't care, and at worst think that's great."
Such a lengthy war, and all with malice. Tell me, IGN, did you find your allies? You left a journalist without her honor. Isn't that a shame? Well, when ignorance became her master, that's the master she became. But what did Game Science do to deserve such pain? Perhaps their answer will reveal. It was all in vain. So, prick up your ears and elude your fears. Tonight, we're leaving the activists in tears. A man representing the Chinese developer had this statement on the situation. The reason why the team behind Black Myth Wukong has been subjected to persistent sexist attacks and slander since their first promotional video is because they have consistently refused political correctness guidance and rejected the extortionate guidance fees of millions of dollars demanded by these political correctness teams. Actually, such teams are quite common in Europe and America. They interfere with works like Assassin's Creed, Dying Light 2 Stay Human, and God of War by pushing for political correct female protagonists. These changes are the direct result of the interference and guidance of such teams. Game science teams refuse to communicate with these groups and reject their interferences. Most importantly, they refuse to pay the exorbitant 7 million in guidance fees. This is the direct reason why they're being attacked and slandered. Some justifications are based on the team's lack of diversity or representation, which doesn't align with the political correctness standards. A typical example is an article by a major IGN writer criticizing Hogwarts Legacy and refusing to evaluate or promote it due to its alleged lack of political correctness. Because of game science's obscure past with mostly mobile games, the Chinese developer had no ground to stand on or defend themselves, which made them an easy target for left-wing activist groups such as IGN and Sweet Baby Inc. However, despite their best efforts, it's very clear that the people did not align themselves with IGN, but the developers instead. Caught in a lie, IGN? Well, it wouldn't be your first. Everybody knows your journalism is the worst. You tried to sabotage this game to burst. But this Monkey King is riding higher than my final verse. Most may imagine that the consistent attacks of the game and its studio inflicted by IGN and equal left-wing activist groups would leave a lasting scar, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. On release, for starters, it would sell 10 million copies within the first 3 days of release and break Steam's concurrent user record, while also becoming the second most played game ever on the platform, reaching an all-time peak of over 2 million players, and even to this day, a month later, comfortably holding hundreds of thousands of players every single day. And the main reason for its success are incredibly simple. Game science simply gave players exactly what they were promised. Possibly the most beautiful graphics in gaming history, a story based on the beloved Chinese novel Journey to the West, and an insane amount of unique characters, from bosses to the regular monsters roaming around. There's over 100 different bosses throughout the game. Just think about that, it's massive, and they're all mostly unique, not just visually, but also in their moveset and story. When defeated, all of them will give Wukong either a soul that he can use for an attack, or a transformation, allowing him to become their image and use their abilities. It gives a giant motivation for players to keep going, as any boss you successfully defeat will be a potential tool in your arsenal. There's a ton of gorgeous and unique armor pieces, and skill points are completely refundable, meaning that you're free to experiment with your build and different moves to your heart's desire at any given moment. You can craft potions to protect you during combat and upgrade your weapons and armor. And the best part is, no microtransaction stores, no season passes, no identity politics, no online at all times, or any other modern day bullcrap. This game is timeless. It respects the player's time and has its sole focus on delivering a great experience. There are some nitpicks as well. The game doesn't feature a map, but it's not linear enough do not need one, especially because there are a lot of secret pathways and boss fights you can miss if you don't explore, but because of invisible walls, it's extremely difficult to figure out which areas are accessible, and if we had a map present, that would certainly help out quite a bit. There's only one difficulty, and it's freaking hard, especially for anyone who's not extremely versed in RPG-styled games. However, in due time, with practice and persistence, you will certainly improve, and there's no feeling of pride like the one you experience after you've defeated a difficult boss, especially if you find yourself stuck on one for a while. Speaking of bosses, there's an insane amount of lore present for all of them, which is especially good if you're a fan of the Chinese mythology.
Victory eludes you, IGN, but isn't always that the case? Perhaps this time you'll learn a lesson. Now, the diff pistol on your face. Before this story ends, I'll make you see my point of view. The villain of this drama is, and always has been, you. Single-player games are back, and they're giving you a bank. But fear not. There is no time for wallowing. Freedom awaits the one who's following.
Was that a fever dream or something? What the fuck was that? Black Myth Wukong, let's do this.
So, Black Myth Wukong, who could have ever imagined that putting all of your priorities on just making a game to be as good as it can possibly be can result in great sales, reception, and player feedback. Easily Game of the Year, though that's hardly an accomplishment looking at the competition. Star Wars Outlaws, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and Concord. My goodness, in this pile of flaming garbage, even the amazing Spider-Man games would stand out. Still, don't let that take away from the fact that this truly is a great game from a first-time developer, which just goes to show you that when you put your priorities in the right place, the game and the players, rather than the investors and the activists, you can make incredible results. That is why this game is breaking records and selling like a hot cake, while all the other Western developers are losing their asses with hundreds of millions of dollars. That is the difference maker, and if this game doesn't prove it, nothing can. And hey, if this is what the AAA development of China looks like, then I can't wait for more games to show up and for us to finally see some proper releases from there. So, until next time, this has been Wild Gold, and thank you all so very much for watching.